Good evening and a warm welcome to Straight Talk. Our guest this evening is Sushila Rivers, Managing Partner at international law firm DLA Piper, based here in Hong Kong. Mrs. Rivers also has a global role as Global Co-Chair Real Estate Sector, and she heads up the Asia Pacific Real Estate practice. She is both the Hong Kong Chair and the Global Governing Trustee at Urban Land Institute, the oldest and largest network of cross-disciplinary real estate and land use experts in the world. Mrs. Rivers is also an executive committee member of the British Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Sushila.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Delighted to be on Straight Talk.
So, Sushila, we know that you have an extensive experience in the Hong Kong real estate sector and your role as the chair of the Urban Land Institute of Hong Kong. That's the reason why we invited you this evening to share with the viewers, provide the viewers with an overview of the current state of Hong Kong, especially why Hong Kong is still a destination for foreign professionals. When I say still, because we used to be a very popular hub, and things have happened over the years, and that's the reason why we want to know more. But before we start, can you just share with us your background and how you become a professional in Hong Kong?
Fantastic. So again, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who know me, I love talking about Hong Kong. And before I answer the question about myself, if I can say, I always like to start something by talking about what I'd like to achieve. And the three things I'd like to achieve today is perhaps to challenge our mindset and our perspective on Hong Kong, to reset our beliefs, and to energize our view and our feeling about Hong Kong. So a little bit about myself and my story. So my mother is Hong Kong Chinese, and she met my Malaysian Indian ethnic father here in Hong Kong. He was at university. So Hong Kong is partially, if not wholly, home, and it is my home for my family and myself. Before Hong Kong, I grew up in Singapore and Malaysia, and then to the UK, where I finished my university degree and worked for many years. So I worked in London. Coming to Hong Kong 15 years ago was completely a decision and a choice. And interestingly, and I'd like to share a personal sort of observation of Hong Kong for when we as a family decided to come here. So I have four adult children, Eugene. And at the time they were much younger. And the first thing I noticed about coming to Hong Kong is the energy. It's tangible, you feel it. And you still feel that today. The second thing, it's definitely a city of East meets West. Hasn't changed. And the third thing, it was a place where I felt I could build my career and I could also raise my family. Right.
So Sushila, thank you very much for that introduction. That kind of answer all the questions I have got for you. I was going to ask you, what attracted you to come and why did you stay? So obviously because this is partly home, and then you mentioned the three reasons that you're here. Hong Kong is very energized and East meets West. So just want to ask you, you made the decision 15 years ago and you have already told us why you made the decision. So would you still make the decision today, the same decision today?
All right, I'm going to answer that by talking about what makes Hong Kong so attractive. And for those of us who know me, I like to categorize things simply. So I'm going to give you 5 reasons why anybody would choose a place to be for their family or for themselves. So you need to make a good living, get a good career out of it. You need to be able to raise a family and potentially even to grow old in this place. You need to be enriched. The place potentially should represent your values, or you feel you can contribute to its values. And if we are moving down a sort of more philanthropic route and a fulfilled life, you need to be able to give back to that place. So let's look at Hong Kong. It's a business city. We talked about Hong Kong having a low tax rate. It's a financial city. It's got a skilled workforce. It's got a fabulous legal system.
Right.
Location. Amazing location. It's beautiful. It's close to Southeast Asia, close to China. Undeniably an advantage. Right. What the city offers: healthcare, education, innovation, future city. All these fantastic reasons. On top of it, very safe.
Right, Sushila, you have...
Have I answered all your questions in advance?
I think you have answered a lot of the questions that the viewers are thinking. But before we we all know the good points of Hong Kong,
Yeah.
but the reason why I asked you, will you still make the same decision, is because in the last few years, most Hong Kong
Yeah.
people will say, wow, what a challenging, not just a few years, but many years since 2014. I mean, Hong Kong was very peaceful, we were very, people would discuss things and we come to senses.
Yeah.
It's very civilized. I use the word civilized. For the last 10 years, you've seen the social unrest, you've seen the riots, the COVID wasn't easy for 3 years. So a lot of people left because of our COVID policy. So I think the reason why I ask you, do you still make the same decision? How will you answer me that?
I would say absolutely yes. And one of the wonderful and unique thing about Hong Kong is we who are here have an opportunity to actually be part of a new Hong Kong. And Hong Kong will need to change. I think it was that Greek philosopher in 500 BC, Heraclitus, who said, the only constant is change.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We shouldn't fear change. And it's an opportunity to really create together a new identity for Hong Kong. Yes, Hong Kong will be more Chinese. And I'm going to ask everybody, including us and myself, to have a look at our mindset in relation to what that means, to look at the situation in China through unbiased eyes. Would I make the same decision? Yes. The thing that I talk about, business, location, the city, hasn't changed.
Right. So Sheila, you have mentioned very good points of Hong Kong. But another common comment we get is Hong Kong isn't a great place to bring up the children. We don't have enough international schools. The education system in Hong Kong sucks. And we heard about that, right?
Yeah.
And people say it's sort of a Peking duck type of education, sort of stuff things into everybody. But you being a mother of 4 grown-up children, and you chose here, does it bother you?
And my children went through the schooling system here. They're all over the world now, either working or finishing off their tertiary education. Education is not just one thing, it's a full thing, the environment it creates. I mean, if I look at Hong Kong students, and I have many of them who've been through the system in Hong Kong in my office, they are phenomenal. They are bright, they're enthusiastic, they are good people. Very hard for me to criticize that. I think when you talk about the change in education, you talk about the change in some of the agenda. I am actually for understanding history in the region. And I urge people to develop a kind of interrogative sense. School is one part of education. Education is so much wider than that.
Right. So far, you've said to me, everything has been fantastic, right? And also, I've been reading up your CV as well. You have this law thing, the Leadership Alliance for Women in your firm. That means you're constantly supporting gender balance and advocate of leadership among ladies, which I said to you earlier, our last chief executive was already a lady, so Hong Kong. So in the last 15 years in Hong Kong, do you find Hong Kong have the same opportunities for ladies, females?
I mean, I'm invariably going to say yes, because this is where I built my career. I mean, Hong Kong, we have a lot to be grateful for the help that we have in the system. I don't think there's many other countries that can afford that. The support that most professional women can have in relation to the ease of the city, the efficiency of the city, and the helper community, which is integral to the success of many people, men and women. Is Hong Kong focused on DEI? I think, very interestingly, I have never met more empowered, strong women than there are in Hong Kong.
Right. So Sheila, another thing I'd like to ask you is last week when we had Andrew Weir here, we talked about, we said earlier, people leaving Hong Kong, but he said that a number of people who went to Singapore actually have returned.
Yeah.
So is that also your observation, and what exactly do you see in your eyes?
I would say some people have returned, and I can imagine a lot of people who've made new lives and settled their family elsewhere will find it hard to return. But back to the fundamentals of Hong Kong, that hasn't changed. And I'm very focused on new people coming. And that is perhaps where we need to turn our attention to continue to make Hong Kong very international, very attractive. And the young people, attracting all kinds of international young people. I'm more interested in new people coming as well.
Right. Earlier in the show, I said Hong Kong has gone through many changes, both social and political, and I mean, in general, cultural. So would you say all these changes are inevitable? Are they good or bad? What is it in your eyes? Because we know the whole world is changing, as you said. The continent has changed. So How do you see Hong Kong with these changes?
An opportunity to create your sense of identity. I mean, Hong Kong has always struggled a little bit with a sense of identity. And being Asian, you know, I'm going to embrace, and I ask people in Asia to embrace their Asianness. That is a unique quality. Hong Kong is also an international city, and it has to be. I mean, it's Asia's world city. It's the international Asia world city. You know, people talk about it being the largest Chinese community internationally, and you know, the largest international city in China. How fantastic is that? Is change good or bad? Change can be good or bad, and it is actually within our power to make it good.
Before we go to the break, just for a quick answer, do you think all these changes make it even more attractive for professionals to come, or it has deterred a lot of good people who want to come to Hong Kong?
I think many people are on the fence because they probably don't fully understand the issues. You know, hopefully you'll ask me later what can be done.
Yep,
but
we'll do that.
The issues need to be demystified. Specifically, China needs to be demystified. Hong Kong is part of China, and it's very linked to people's overall view on China.
Right.
And the plea is to develop a seventh sense to interrogate what we read, and in return, Hong Kong has to do a much better job in relation to its public relations in relation to Hong Kong.
Right. So Sheila, let's take a break now. We'll come back, and viewers, do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us, and we have Sushila Rivers, a legal expert in the real estate sector from international law firm DLA Piper, talking to us about whether Hong Kong is still attractive to foreign professionals. So Sushila, in the first part of the show, you have categorically said many good things about Hong Kong.
Okay.
You said the location, the people, education is fine. You even brought up, you're bringing up kids here, and you are very impressed with the Hong Kong students. So viewers, we do have a good education system, or else why would Sushila say they're brilliant students? Before the break, we talk about people sitting on the fence. And we know that one of the reasons may be that the implementation of the national security legislation in Hong Kong. There has been a lot of Western rhetoric saying that how bad it is, people, if you come to Hong Kong, people may take you away with the reasoning, all that, etc., etc. In your daily work as a legal professional, do you see that? I mean, because from us, we don't see any evidence of it. But for people who don't understand, they must think, hey, Hong Kong is becoming a police state. What is your simple answer to that?
My simple answer is the NSL probably hasn't got the impact on business the way that people feared, and number one. And number two, I would like to make the point that many countries have got national securities laws legislation. So Hong Kong is not unique. Arguably, actually, it was slow to the game.
But then why would people want to use that as for the negative to Hong Kong? At least we see in the Western media.
Because it came off the back of the protests, and so the link is inevitable. Also, I think it is still being looked at through a lens of China.
What do you mean by looking through the lens of China?
There is an inherent China bias because of perhaps the way it is perceived to be a little bit more controlling, the way in which it could impact freedom of expression. Again, I would say all that is still unfolding. Importantly, I would think there are no country that has full free freedom of expression.
So Sushila, we talked about people sitting on the fence. I mean, a very good term that you have used. That means people will find Hong Kong very attractive, especially the global economy isn't doing that great. And Hong Kong is right at the doorstep to the mainland China, one of the biggest developing markets. But all these geopolitical tensions are still increasing. Would that deter people from coming to Hong Kong?
It is a funny stage to be in the world where we've got geopolitical issues amidst potential recessions in some countries, amidst confusion post-COVID. Would Hong Kong remain attractive? I would urge people to look at the fundamentals. Its uniqueness cannot be displaced. Will the geopolitics still play out? It's hard to tell. The only thing I would say and urge people is to develop, again, an interrogative way of looking at things. And if you can, have a visit to these places which are being questioned. I've been to China many times. I've obviously lived in Hong Kong. I've traveled around the world to make that comparative analysis.
Yeah, when you say that, I kind of remember what Andrew Weir said last week. So seeing is believing.
Yeah.
That's the term that he used. So the government has tried to reinvigorate the city, and they have done a lot of trawling the talents, a lot of schemes.
Yeah.
Are they working?
If you look at what it's trying to do in terms of innovation and tech, in terms of the startup companies, the youth, really trying to understand housing, creating digital assets, legislation to try and be more innovative, and very importantly, hopefully following China's lead on that green economy, the sustainable environment, diversity, etc. If we do all those things and we communicate it well, then it should work. I think the question of whether it's working is still early days.
Mm-hmm. You saw that our chief executive and also our officials have visited the Middle East and also some ASEAN countries. Do you think Hong Kong will become attractive to those professionals from ASEAN and the Middle East?
Why not? I think if you think of Hong Kong being at the doorstep of China, 1.4 billion, and it's an access point to China, why not? Mm-hmm. And China must remain international. I often use this analogy, Eugene. If you think of China as the body, in many ways, Hong Kong is the international face. Mm-hmm. And the international face needs to be looked after.
Right, so Sheila, I mean, actually, I didn't realize you can speak Chinese. I was going to ask you because with the increasing number of work visas in Hong Kong, yeah, they will bring them their dependents to come along, yeah, and they have their dependent visa. I'm sure I've read some of them who want to try to get some jobs in Hong Kong, but they find it difficult to get it if they don't speak Chinese. I mean, how big a problem from your eyes that if somebody can't speak Chinese in the new sort of new Hong Kong, so to speak?
I mean,
is that a problem?
Potentially. The importance of Chinese language, Mandarin in particular, has always been the case even in all kinds of industry, including my own law firms. But I will say one of the things about Hong Kong that has always been a selling point for it is this English proficiency. And I would like Hong Kong to focus on that as well, to get a kind of proficiency in English. I'm wondering if artificial intelligence will challenge that importance.
Do you see Hong Kong's proficiency in English is improving or stay the same or actually go the other way?
I think it's going down.
Yeah. How can we do that apart from asking them to watch Straight Talk?
I think there is a part to play with schools, with families, with focus. You know, we talk about the policies that the country needs to have. And that focus can be started. It's never too late to put something in place because we are thinking long term as well as short term.
So maybe the government may have to start thinking about this
Very important. The internationalization of Hong Kong is key.
Just one point I want to bring up. I remember when I first was involved with public services like 20 odd years ago, a lot of the meetings are conducted in English. Even my professional meeting I've conducted in English. But now I think most meetings are in Cantonese. So I mean, how can people improve then if they don't use it?
I mean, I'm going to take a leaf out of the Singapore book, which they have done. Lee Kuan Yew really did well, which is standardizing Mandarin throughout or creating a language where people can communicate in Chinese and the importance as a first language of English. Mm-hmm. It's never too late to stop. I mean, I am constantly impressed by the quality of people to learn and continually spend the time and effort in doing so. That commitment, if channeled properly, will not be difficult.
So we must ask you your expertise because we know you're a real estate person.
Okay.
See, Hong Kong is infamous for its high cost of our real estate. I mean, the rents and living are one of the highest in the world. Used to be, but now coming second or third now. So where are we now compared to before? Are we going to be more competitive because we're no longer at the top?
I think Hong Kong will go through an evolution, the extent of which we'll wait to see. You know, unfortunately or fortunately, because of its unique location and the scarcity of space, and the fact that it is still a small population, it will always have a demand-supply issue, provided the country, the city completely opens up and is attractive in the way that it has been. Will it be a cheap place to live? No. Will it still always hold that top position? Probably not.
Mm-hmm. So Sushila, you also spend a lot of time in Singapore. So I'm going to ask you, because I read in South China Morning Post in March that the rent in Singapore has gone up like 40%.
Yeah.
And about 7 out of 10, all these corporations are considering to relocate their staff. So how is Hong Kong comparing to that? Will we get the relocation from Singapore to Hong Kong? And also, do you think Hong Kong is also facing the issue?
I mean, Hong Kong remains expensive, so it will never be looked at as an affordable jurisdiction, and relocation for that reason. If people come here, it's because of business reasons and for all the reasons I've mentioned. Singapore, again, really feeling it because it's never been that environment where rents are so high. And I would say I can see that the local community is trying to fight that. And the Singapore government is trying to create that kind of affordable housing as well. So they've done that very well. And one thing that Hong Kong really is focused on and should spend a lot of time, which it is doing, is that affordable housing.
Right, so Sheila, we only got time for 2 more questions. So we have to use the time wisely. From a perspective, you know that the chief executive is writing his second policy address right now. So now I will give you the platform. What will you say to Mr. John Lee?
I would say, Mr. Lee, 3 things. Communicate well with your people, communicate well internationally, listen, and really communicate with your heart, because the people are so keen to listen.
Is he doing that right now?
I think he's trying to do that, yes. I think he's trying to do that. But work on that PR machine, because we've got the weight of media who have got their own agenda. So we've got to work hard on that. Focus on the 5 things I talk about, what's important about Hong Kong, and also really leverage of what the China focus is, which is the green economy, and that can really be a very good topic.
Right. Any more advice? Anything the CE should do?
Again, the internalization of Hong Kong, internationalization of Hong Kong.
Maybe increase the proficiency in English, as you said.
Yes.
Right. What advice would you give to foreign professionals who are considering relocating to Hong Kong? Short answer.
Okay, short answer. 3 things. Look at Hong Kong factually, interrogate the information, look at China without bias lens, and look at yourself as a contributor, not always receiving.
Thank you. So I'm afraid that's all the time we have. I wish I had more time with you, Sushila, for sharing your first-hand experience of a foreign professional settling in Hong Kong and reassuring our viewers of all the advantages the city offers, the rule of law, freedom of speech, and high quality of life that make Hong Kong an attractive destination for foreign professionals. Have a good evening and see you next week.